I think that right now, if we look at productivity, it's running at about 4%. And then usually capital and labor add another couple of percent to growth in a typical year. So if we really keep that 4% productivity, we're looking at one of the best years we've ever seen. In the fourth quarter, we have GDP now saying that it's about 5%, a little bit more, but that's with a 1.5% penalty from the government shutdown. So if there hadn't been a shutdown, then GDP now would be telling us about 6.5%.
White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett telling Maria on Friday that the United States is on pace for historic GDP growth in the first half of this year. Now, geopolitical tensions and tariff uncertainty remain top of mind for investors and, of course, economists who are all descending on the World Economic Forum in Davos this week. I want to bring in Heritage Foundation Chief Economist EJ Antoni. EJ, let's talk about this because there is a lot of news we expect to happen on the ground in Davos, in particular when President Trump goes out and he addresses the forum on Wednesday. What are you expecting to hear? We know about international politics, but we also are expecting a major announcement on housing.
Well, Cheryl, that's exactly right. So I think we will see a further push in the president's domestic agenda, especially on housing that you just mentioned. I expect that he'll also highlight provisions of the big, beautiful bill that have kicked in, will continue kicking in this year. We're going to see big investment numbers. We've already seen some of that in the preliminary data. That's great news. That'll help fuel future economic growth as well. We're looking at a big tax return season. Very positive news there. But I think the biggest thing that we'll see, Cheryl, is going to be not just individual details of aspects of plans. That's all true. But his posture. It's going to be a posture of strength because the president is going into Davos essentially with the hottest economy in the entire world. Most of the other countries, their representatives that are going to be meeting there, they have anemic economies. They're staring down the barrel of recessions in a lot of places around the world. Things are booming here in the United States. So again, whatever he says, notice he'll be speaking from a position of strength, and I expect that to come through in his posture and in the language that he uses.
Do you think that helps him when he has these meetings with several world leaders? We already heard from Germany's leader this morning that from work he wants to actually meet with the president. The backdrop, I guess, is the Greenland issue. Your thoughts on that?
Well, when we look at a lot of these countries in Europe, Cheryl, there's some things that we really need to understand kind of as important background here, one of which is the fact that the president is finally getting them to up their defense contributions, something that those nations haven't been willing to do for a very long time. So the president, using his negotiation skills, was able to get that done. But again, he's also negotiating from a position of strength. A big reason why our economy is so hot right now is the president's pro-energy agenda. Look at a very basic component like glycols in the chemical industry, Cheryl. These are things that go into countless consumer and industrial products. We get it primarily from natural gas. And if you look at places in Europe, many of those countries, the cost of them producing this basic building block in the chemical industry is 4x what it takes us to make it here in the United States. So again, the president is coming at all of this from a position of tremendous strength. So when he talks about Denmark, when he talks about NATO, when he talks about the Ukraine, you name it, it is all from a position of strength. I think that's very important for America.
Interesting. No, America 250 is going to be definitely the theme, and that's what the structure is called there. Some economists are predicting that the Federal Reserve is going to hold interest rates steady at next week's meeting. They lowered by a quarter point, third time in a row last month. You know, the president implied that Kevin Hassett might be out of the running for Fed chair. And we did see yields end higher last week. December CPI did show us a 0.3% monthly rise, 2.7% over year. So, Federal Reserve President Austin Goolsbee says inflation's going to roar back if the Fed doesn't remain independent. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, can we please drop this whole idea of Fed independence? I mean, this is just absolute nonsense. Powell has shown time and time again he is neither politically independent nor is he data dependent. You can look at what he did with cutting interest rates right before the election last year as they tried to get their preferred candidate across the finish line, and you can compare the economic data then to the economic data later under the Trump administration, and you can see that the data at least were much more in favor of a rate cut at periods under the Trump administration than right before the election. But it was right before the election they decided to give us that jumbo-sized rate hike. So I think we just need to dispense with this whole idea that Powell is somehow defending Fed independence. It's nonsense. As far as Hassett goes, look, one of the difficulties there is he's so invaluable as a communicator for this administration that it's hard to justify pulling him out of that position. It's not to say he couldn't be a good Fed chair, but again, there's a big trade-off there, just like there would be if you were to pull the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, from his role and make him the Fed chair. Yeah. I'm sure he would be a fabulous Fed chair, but he's probably the best Treasury Secretary you could find in the world right now. So how do you pull him from that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll wait to see what the president announces. I have to get your thoughts on this, EJ. Investors are awaiting the Supreme Court's decision on the legality of President Trump's tariffs. We could get a decision tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time from the Supreme Court. We never know what they're going to issue, but the White House is already preparing a backup plan if they are ruled against it. Kevin Hassett told Maria about it Friday. Watch this.
We're highly confident that they're going to side with us, that the legal analysis is on our side. But we also have a backup plan that's really solid. We can put a 10% tariff on right away to make up most of the room, and then use things like the 301 authorities, the 232 authorities to backfill the things that we've already achieved with these great deals with the countries. I expect that the Supreme Court is going to be really, really supportive of the president's plan. And so the idea that the tariffs would harm the economy and create inflation has been proven wrong by the data, and I think that the Supreme Court wouldn't want to upend all of that great success either.
I want to get your thoughts on this because we've already seen lawsuits filed from several large American companies: Costco, Bumblebee, Revlon, Kawasaki, Luxottica, the eyeglass maker. They're ready, if the Supreme Court rules against the administration, for their refunds, which would be, as one analyst called it, a dog's breakfast. Your reaction?
Well, Cheryl, like Hassett was just saying there, the administration has a lot of other tools in the toolkit, so to speak, when it comes to implementing these tariffs, especially 232. So it's not as if tariffs are just instantly going to vanish if the court rules against the administration. But in terms of how the court is going to rule, I'm becoming kind of increasingly suspicious that the court is going to try to split the baby, as it were. And it's very possible they come down with a ruling that says the IEEPA tariffs can no longer continue, but we're going to allow existing ones that have already been put in place to stay, but the president just can't use that authority for any future ones. So again, that's a very real possibility, and it would mean no refunds in that case. Yeah, no, and the Treasury Secretary said that there are other tariff authorities to be put in use. That's the backup plan. EJ, it's great to see you. Thank you for being here. You too, Cheryl.